Mr. Minnick helping students with writing loops worksheet number 1 and figuring out where to start, how to attack a problem when you've understood the specs, step 1 of the programming process, but you have to plan out your attack, step 2, then write code, step 3, then debug it, step 4, and then just hand in the test. We'll call that step 5. Well, I'm going to go through this and circle important key concepts like the user is going to be inputting something. It's going to go until something happens. Greater than 100 sounds important. Prompting the user needs to be in there. And display. Those are really, really important operative words. This is a worksheet that has to do with loops. So a loop is involved. In the language that I'm teaching in this course, we have definite loops that use the syntax for, the word for, and we have indeterminate loops that use the word while. There is something called a do-while loop, but we don't study that specifically in this current unit. Well, because this problem is being given to us framed with the word until and more logical thinking, I just know that this loop must execute and iterate over and over again until some unknown period of time. It hinges on like a customer, somebody playing the game, perhaps random events, but there is no number here of exact iterations like there is down here, by the way, exactly 5 times, exactly 10 times. If your business client doesn't tell you this as the coder or as the software developer, tease it out of him or her. Find out if they intend for something to, a store to be open some definite number of hours, or they're just going to sleep in the grocery store where they work and be there all night long 24/7 for anybody to come shopping. You got to know that when you write this code, virtual code like those Amazon shopless stores where they don't have clerks these days out there in Seattle, I think. So back to the task at hand. A while loop is the choice, but I leave a gap here because I might need to declare and initialize local variables that I just pop up along the way. But a while loop does need a control expression that simplifies to true or false with a set of parentheses that's required. And a while loop does have a body to it, which must be, for good style in my class, enclosed in a set of curly braces. And I'm still kind of pseudocoding this out, but kind of cheating and writing the code, step 3 of the programming process at the same time. Okay, so while something is greater than 100, we do want to go through the loop. We want to stop when it hits greater than 100, I meant to say. So I don't care if you're a half is glass full, glass is half full person or the other way around. Whether you use a less than or greater than, I don't care, as long as you have that exclamation mark, the not, used properly so that it logically fleshes out. So my way of interpreting this, which might not be your way, is until resulting total is greater than 100. If I had a better mouse, I would write that phrase in here for now temporarily, but I'm not. I'm just going to say when we're over 100, we stop. While total over 100, we stop. But now that I look at that, it doesn't make sense. While total greater than 100, we keep going around? No, it's while, that's when we stop. So maybe I'm the kind of person that just slaps a not there and wraps this all up in a set of parentheses to fix the problem that I just thought of. But maybe I'm also the person that confuses people when I talk to them, and that's my fate in life. So code refinement is later on teasing this down to shorter, easier code. Right now, I just want to get this to work. And it's a test, I'll pretend. So I don't have time to make it perfectly logical. You can trust with me as an instructor in this particular course that I'll pretty much give you full credit, guaranteed, if it works. I'm not happy if it's complicated for me to have to trace and understand, but I'll give you full credit. So I'm going to erase this lesser way of doing it in my mind right now, and I'm going to put it the way I would like to see more of my students do it, and that is while the total is less than 100, now we can have fun and keep shopping on this shopping spree. And we don't need this extra parenthesis. Man, that would keep you up all night if that were a programming assignment. You can't have one person at the school dance that's of that gender and two people of the other gender. It doesn't work that way, unless the one's a chaperone. But anyway, that no longer should be there. Okay, back to this. Now, I might still be off by a little bit. That's why I kind of just naturally leave gaps in everything. I might need that equals there. I'm not sure. When I test this, I'll look into it deeper. Don't do this. Come on. Don't do that kind of symbol, because that isn't even on the keyboard. Where would you type that if this were your C++ code or Java code, if this is a Java person like watching this video? So for now, we're just going to ignore that. Where did total come from? That's so pseudocode-ish. That's so just winging it, hoping that the program works. In C++ and many other languages, you must ahead of time declare a variable and initialize it before you can make use of it. Now, while the word total makes sense because it was used here, but it wasn't in the font that I typically use if I require you to use certain variable names. So in this case, total just makes sense to me, but if you called it sum, I guess I would take that too. Anyway, total must be declared. It makes sense to make it an int and not a double, a floating point, because somewhere it mentions integer values. So you'd be wasting memory if you use the data type double, and maybe I'd nick you a half a point for that. The computer would probably work slower. You'd have to buy a new iPhone sooner if you went around wasting space like that. Anyway, int total. And it is good style, the way I teach this course, to initialize variables equal to 0 to be safe. Here, it's pretty much required for the logic of this to be correct, for that to be equal to 0. Otherwise, it's a garbage random number, and it could be a negative and totally give people more shopping time than they deserve. On a test, and usually on worksheets, I don't require you have comments here explaining the purpose of that variable. It wouldn't hurt if you have time, but on a test, I would not require that comment over there. Okay, so this is better than nothing, so just turn this in if you're low on time. I give you points for just knowing a while loop is the tool of choice. I give you points for knowing that parentheses are involved and declaring a variable. This is actually a good grade, relatively speaking. But let's go for more. So now we got to go into the actual hard part, the algorithm that's used here. When the word prompt is used, myself and others probably mean that you should have a sign that tells people what the rules of your store are. No small kids unattended, kind of thing. Don't drink your coffee even though you bought it at the Starbucks because you might spill it on the other stuff at Giant grocery store here in central Pennsylvania. Like, there are all kinds of rules. But code doesn't see signs. So I need a cout statement. That's the way C++ works for console output. This is stuff you just know. And then just be nice. Just say, please input number between. Now, I'm writing with a mouse right now, so this is awkward, so I'm abbreviating, but you should be nice. And if you want to say inclusive or exclusive to be really explanatory, great. I guess this means that people can type in the number 10 and they are allowed to type in the n.1, meaning on a number line they're like closed dots as opposed to empty dots, if you remember high school geometry or algebra. Anyway, that's kind of ambiguous right now in this video, but I'm just leaving that to you or future instructors that use this in their class. I don't like endl here myself because that would then not have the blinking cursor and the number right next to that colon. I do like a space there, by the way. That would be nice where I'm waving my mouse. Okay, so clean that up with like the PLZ crap. Now moving on. That doesn't actually allow the person to input the number. The input is the most important part. So we need cin. And don't forget, cin needs the insertion operator, not the extraction operator. In other words, it needs that thing. And cin needs that variable name total. No, total's the total. We need another place to put our bread. You know, when they give you bread with a meal, you should put the bread on a bread plate, not right there on the main total plate. So we need another like little variable here. That makes sense that it'd be an int. And I don't know what to name it, so just name it x. No, that's too short. Name it like next num, like the next num inputted. That would be even better than just num. So cin next num would kind of go hand in hand with that cout. These two are a pair. Now on some exams I don't ask you to prompt, so you could just put the cin. Far so good. If you're the kind of person that crosses things out as you did them, you would probably cross like pretty much all of that out, but we did not do the display yet. And we didn't really do the sum yet, so actually that's kind of like out there still. Well, in my demo programs and maybe explanation in lecture note, online lecture notes, somewhere I taught you the plus equals operator in C++, but there's also the way of doing it like something equals something plus something. Good luck with that. What the heck, I'll just show you in the video. So you put total and then next num around this plus equals operator. And don't forget, you always need semicolons in some languages. But I pity the po fool who just copied that down from a video, because you just blindly trusted me and I totally get it wrong the first time through on purpose. So I'm going on pause right now, waiting for my spring 2019 Comp Sci 101 class at Penn State Berks to correct my total mistake there. Corrected off video that I was wrong. Thank you for showing up, your instructor. But common mistake, and that plus equals compound operator that some computer languages support, some don't. It's a little scary, so don't use it if you can't handle it. But normally an assignment statement that does adding, subtracting, dividing, or any other multiplication, any other math operation, you put an equals in there, and the complicated part is always to the right. It's always just a single variable name on the left. That's the way it has to be. The question is, the thing that we're adding up and where we're putting that new sum, is the purpose of the variable total, or is the purpose of next num the one that gets the running total? Well, total. If somebody had named that T, it's not obvious to somebody, especially that has another language as their first language, that T stands for total. So we want total here on the left. That's the accumulating variable that stores the running total. And each time around this loop, a new little bit is added to your credit card, charges. The little bit that we're adding is next num. It is that number that the customer self-honestly swiped in the checkout register, or the little thing that I drag around the shopping, the giant food on Van Reed Road. I can just shop myself and it adds up in this little thing I carry around. It's pretty slick. Then they just trust me at checkout time. I think cameras watch me, but I wouldn't cheat. So I just kind of do this adding. Oh, what goes here? Well, this is weird, because if you subtract total from both sides algebraically, you end up with 0 equals next num, which makes no sense. But this isn't algebra. This is just your typical run-of-the-mill counter statement that is explained in my lecture notes. When you trace a loop, you almost always have one of these in there. The cin does no good at all if you're not taking the number, next num, in this case, the value, and adding it into something. So back to the matter at hand. This is just the way to do it. Now, there are people that put this in the wrong order, and they put that line of code up here. But how can you add something in if the customer hasn't inputted it yet? So the flow of statements here, which are intended for good style, is necessary to get it right. A lot of hands-on practice in an interactive textbook like Zybooks, or just a website like Replit, or other choices in 5 years that you might have when watching this video. Get your hands-on experience, even if it's hard to get access to those tools. Okay, tracing this code on paper, or actually coming up with it on paper, I'm almost finished. We need to display something. Well, my hunch is to put Cout right here in the curly braces, but that'd be annoying. Telling the people what their running total is as they go, they won't then overspend their credit card and spend more. We should just shock them at the end with a Cout. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm totally messing with anybody that's watching this video, if anybody ever does. It is ambiguous up here, probably arguably by 7 instructors out of 10, much less 100 students out of 150. It doesn't, oh, it is not ambiguous. Ha, gotcha. It says final total, not running total. It is not ambiguous, and I would take points off if I were the business that hired you to do this, because I do want to shock people. I want them to run up their charges and not know until it's too late. Ha. You could say this is poor customer service. I don't. I have a reason for this. So that word final is crucial to getting full credit on this particular exercise. Unless you talk me out of it, but that would take an offline discussion. So Cout next num, wait, no, that doesn't make sense. That's the last number that they happen to enter, which isn't really relevant. So you better Cout total. And don't Cout hello world, and don't Cout anything else, because it didn't say to print out a dollar sign. It didn't say to have a good day or do ASCII art. This is an exercise that didn't give you much room to put your answer. Just keep it simple, stupid, and just put the word total there, the variable name total. You don't even need Endel, in my opinion, on this particular kind of quiz. That's it. This isn't a whole, oh, this is a whole program. So we do need to return 0. We need to include IOStream. But normally I give questions like this. I'm totally changing it right now. Write a code segment. So this is just the code segment that would be in the larger program, which is really just include IOStream using namespace std int main curly brace and then return 0 curly brace. So there's like 5 lines of code that we memorized in this particular semester that you would put around this. I'm not going to go over that in this particular video because I have a feeling tomorrow I'm just going to change this to a code segment. See, this is a code segment because it doesn't say to write a whole program. This is a code segment because it doesn't say to write a whole program. Okay, I think that's a wrap. The only thing for a student to do, besides watching the last 2 minutes of a 17-minute video that I see I've got, is to trace your code to make sure it works as you intended. So I will, in a different color here, trace this real fast. Total, this is me tracing. It didn't say I had to trace for full credit in this worksheet, but I will just because I'm a super cautious student. Total, N is an abbreviation right now for next num. We initialize them both to 0. While total less than 100. Is total less than 100 right now? Is 0 less than 100? True, that's a big fat T. So we do go through the loop at least once. If I had a greater than there, like I originally did, this wouldn't even work once. The hot air balloon wouldn't even lift off because there would be no hot air. So I'm glad that I'm checking this because I could have potentially got a 0 out of 10 or at least a really bad grade if I didn't check that. Okay, I don't have time to buy a lot of dollar purchases, so I'm just going to buy something for 98 bucks. The first number that I hypothetically predict is being typed in here to next is 98. So when you add 98 to the current 0 that's stored in total, you get a grand total there temporarily of 98. That 98 from right to left, that's the way assignment statements work, plugs in the total. I put a single line through that, put the 98 there. Now the customer, interestingly, doesn't know that he or she has a credit limit of 100. Oh, the specs say that the user should have played nice and typed in numbers between 1 and 10, but it's not saying that you have to enforce that. Later, perhaps in this course, I expect you to put an if statement in that guards against people ordering things for next num over 10. You don't have to do that, and if you did it, you were doing it optionally on this particular exercise, the way it was originally worded. Don't do extra like that on my test perhaps next week. Don't add the extra if where you don't need it. I mean, it's nice, especially if you get it right, but you don't have to. Now, there might be other questions where you have to add the if, but not on this one. On programming assignments, eventually in this course, I usually do have it be tricky like that, but not on something simple like this. So I am cheating on my own test, and I'm putting 98 in because this video is already long. I'm just pretending that I got to the total of 98 ... with a bunch of like small purchases of between $1 and $10. So now that I'm at 98, that just got added up. Say previously it was 93. I added something for $5. So there was a 5 in this column. That 5 added in that 93 to make a grand total of 98 so far. And now we looped around, and the total is less than 100. 98 is less than 100. It's true. And now the question is, when do we stop? Do we need an equal symbol here? Let's buy something on purpose for $2, meaning that 2 plugs into the variable next num because the way CN works, and that 2 gets added to the current 98 for a grand total now of 100. The 100, see, you're in the loop. You can't pull yourself out of a loop once you're in it, even if you're too heavy for the merry-go-round. If you ate all that cotton candy while you were going around and you gained weight, but there was a weight limit before you got on, they don't stop or check with a weight sensor that you're too heavy. No, we're in it. Now we loop back up, and now we strictly interpret, is 100 less than 100? So without that equal symbol in there, 100 is not less than 100. That would yield a false, and the loop would end at this moment with no free last purchase. Is that the interpretation that most people off the street would have from this wording? Allow the user to input until it is greater than 100. No, I'm wrong. We need to allow them to get over 100. So they get one more pass through the loop. I'm going to change that to an equals, so I'm totally correct on this exercise. So now that I'm at 100, I can purchase something that's up to $9. Heck, I'm going for it. No, $10, because I'm assuming that you were allowed inclusively to order something for 10. I'm just going to order something. It's not my money. It's my spouse's money. Which is my money. Anyway, 10. 10 does get added in, and then the total becomes 110. And then at that point, 110 is not less than or equal to 100. That yields a false, which means the code doesn't execute anymore, and the number 110 theoretically could print out based on the current wording of this exercise. You would lose some points in the way I grade if you did not have the equals there in this way. Last thing I'll say in this long video, and this class ends soon anyway, here tonight, the other possible variations of this with the word while could have been not parentheses, total greater than 100, with another set of outer parentheses as necessary by the syntax of while. I believe that also would be correct. I'll leave it as an exercise you to trace it. Another variation that would be acceptable would be this variation right here. Perhaps while total. I was just thinking of one, and now I can't think of it. While total less than 100. What are other ways of saying? Yeah, you could say like 0 greater than or equal to total and total less, but there's no way to get negatives. So you're really just thinking too out of the box for that. There probably are other variations that I'd have to look at on a one-by-one case basis, but you could have traced and just know that you get full credit the way I and typically a computer would execute it. Okay, that's a wrap.